please. Pretend you're my dad." The words landed like thunder out of a clear sky, ripping through the hushed luxury of Ciel, Chicago's most exclusive rooftop restaurant, where crystal chandeliers rained diamond light, and every table cost more than most people's yearly rent. The entire room froze. A 7-year-old girl stood motionless at the velvet-curtained entrance, barefoot, feet black with street mud. Her thin cotton dress clung wet and torn at the hem, barely covering a frame as fragile as kindling, hair matted and plastered to her scalp. Skin ghostly pale, almost translucent under the warm golden lights, cheeks hollow, cracked lips bleeding faintly. But those eyes, those storm blue eyes, didn't beg, didn't plead. They simply locked straight ahead, fierce burning on the man sitting alone at the best table in the house. Vincent Russo. A waiter halted mid-step. Glassware clinked once, then silence. A diamond-draped woman whispered urgently. An older man fumbled for his phone finger, already hovering over the call button. "Security," he mouthed. Someone hissed, "Call the police now." Vincent set his wineglass down without a sound. He rose slowly, each movement deliberate like a blade sliding from its sheath. 6'3" of perfectly tailored menace. Every eye in the room followed the soft click of his shoes across the marble floor. He stopped 2 paces from the child. His shadow fell over her like night itself. Then he dropped to one knee so slowly the fabric of his trousers whispered, his storm-gray eyes leveled with her storm-blue ones. "What's your name, little one?" His voice was low, rough, yet strangely gentle. The girl swallowed hard. Her voice cracked, tiny, parched from cold and thirst. "Lily." At that exact moment, beyond the floor-to-ceiling glass wall, a black SUV sat motionless in the rain. Windows blacked out. Engine idling low, predatory. The driver raised a phone to his ear. A cold, calm voice murmured through the small speaker, "It's time." Vincent didn't turn, didn't look outside, but something in his body shifted, subtle, lethal. No one in that glittering room yet realized that a single trembling sentence from a pair of bare, muddy feet had just opened the door to a storm that would burn everything down. One plea, one choice, and an empire began to crack. Do you dare keep watching? If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect on the quiet power of kindness, especially when no one else chooses to show it. Share your thoughts in the comments, and tell us where you're watching from. Which city and country are you in, and what time is it there right now? It's always amazing to see how stories like this connect people from all over the world. If moments like this remind you of the beauty of humanity, please like the video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more powerful stories that celebrate compassion, courage, and the simple acts of kindness that can change a life. The rain came down in relentless sheets over the south side of Chicago on a cold October evening in 2025, turning the cracked sidewalks into shallow rivers of neon reflection. Streetlights flickered weakly through the downpour, their orange glow smearing across wet asphalt like spilled paint. The 24-hour diner on West 55th Street stood like a lone beacon in the gloom, a squat brick building with a buzzing red sign that read, "Open," in flickering letters, the word, always long since burned out. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of burnt coffee, frying onions, and damp wool coats. Fluorescent tubes hummed overhead, casting a harsh, unforgiving light on the scuffed linoleum floor, and the handful of late-night patrons scattered across the booths. A lone truck driver hunched over a plate of congealing eggs at the counter. 2 teenagers in hoodies whispered fiercely in a corner booth, their voices low against the steady drum of rain on the metal awning outside. Vincent Russo sat in the farthest booth back to the wall, the way he always positioned himself. At 45, he carried the quiet authority of a man who had built an empire from nothing. Construction contracts, security firms, real estate deals that kept the city's skyline growing while his name stayed off most public ledgers. Fair-skinned, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped dark hair, streaked gray at the temples, and eyes the color of storm clouds, he looked every inch. The successful Chicago businessman in his tailored charcoal overcoat and crisp, white shirt. But beneath the polished surface lay layers of shadow memories of a childhood in the same projects he now owned, pieces of guilt that gnawed like rust on iron, remorse for choices made in the name of survival and power. Tonight the weight felt heavier. A meeting earlier with a rival faction had ended in veiled threats. Marco Delgado's people pushing boundaries again, testing old lines drawn in blood years ago. Vinny had walked away calm on the outside, but inside the conflict raged, the urge to crush the challenge versus the bone-deep weariness of endless vigilance. He sipped black coffee that tasted like regret, staring at the rain-streaked window without really seeing it. The bell above the door jingled, a cheerful sound that clashed with the storm outside. A small figure slipped inside, dripping water onto the welcome mat. She could not have been more than 7 years old. Her blonde hair hung in wet strings under a too large pink hoodie that swallowed her thin frame. Mud-caked sneakers left dark prints as she stepped forward. Her jeans were frayed at the hems, the cuffs soaked and dark. A cheap plastic backpack clung to her narrow shoulders, one strap torn and safety pinned back together. Her face was pale, almost translucent, cheeks hollow from too many skipped meals, eyes wide and blue like cracked glass holding back terror. The waitress, a middle-aged woman named Carla with tired lines around her eyes, looked up from the coffee pot. "Honey, you okay? Where's your mom?" The girl did not answer. Her gaze darted around the room, past the trucker, past the teenagers, until it landed on Vinny. Most people avoided his booth. Something in his stillness warned them away. Children usually cried or hid when they saw him. But this child took a shaky breath, clenched her small fists, and walked straight toward him. Vinny felt the shift before he understood it. The room seemed to narrow the rain, louder the hum of the lights sharper. He set his mug down slowly, eyes never leaving her. She stopped at the edge of his table, trembling so hard her teeth chattered. Rainwater dripped from her hood onto the formica. She leaned in, voice barely above a whisper, cracked and desperate. "Please, pretend you're my dad." The words hit him like a fist to the sternum. For a heartbeat, the diner vanished, the smells, the sounds, the rain. Only her face remained terrified, trusting impossibly small. Vinny's mind raced. He saw the bruise fading yellow on her thin wrist, peeking from the hoodie sleeve. Saw the way her shoulders hunched as if expecting a blow. Saw the raw plea in eyes that should never have known such fear. Outside headlights cut through the rain. A black SUV rolled slowly into the parking lot, engine idling low and predatory. The driver did not get out immediately. Vinny's pulse thudded in his ears. Old instincts flared. Scan exits, calculate distances, assess threats. But beneath it all surged something deeper, something he had buried long ago, a fierce protective ache he thought dead. He slid over on the vinyl seat, patted the space beside him. His voice came out low, steady, loud enough for the room to hear. "Sit down, kid. You know better than to run off like that without telling me." The girl hesitated only a second, then scrambled up beside him, pressing close against his side. She smelled of wet concrete, cheap strawberry shampoo, and something heartbreaking hunger exhaustion, the faint metallic tang of fear sweat. Her small body shook against the solid warmth of his coat. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she whispered, the word breaking on a sob. The fear in her voice needed no acting. Vinny wrapped one arm around her shoulders, careful, gentle, as if she might shatter. His hand engulfed her entire upper arm. He glared toward the door. The man who entered shook rain from a dark raincoat. Mid-30s, polished shoes, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of face that could pass for a teacher or accountant. But Vinny recognized the predator's scan, the way his eyes flicked booth to booth with cold precision. Carla approached, coffee pot in hand, sensing the tension. "Everything okay here? Hot chocolate for the little one. She's fine," the man said before Vinny could speak. His voice was smooth, cultured, edged with ice. He stepped closer. "There's been a misunderstanding. That child is in my care. She runs away, sometimes makes up stories." The girl Lily, though Vinny did not know her name yet, went rigid against him. Her nails dug into his shirt through the fabric. She shook her head violently, face buried in his coat. Vinny lifted his coffee mug slowly, brought it to his lips without drinking. He stared at the steam rising, mind calculating. The man's calm certainty, the way he assessed Vinny's posture, his coat, the expensive watch on his wrist. This was no panicked parent. "Is that so?" Vinny asked quietly. "Yes." The man took another step, reaching into his pocket. Vinny's free hand drifted beneath the table, fingers brushing the concealed holster at his waist, but the man only produced a wallet flashing a photo of a smiling girl on a playground swing. Clean clothes, neat hair, bright ribbons. The contrast to the child huddled against Vinny was stark, cruel. "See, she's mine. Name's Lily. We've been looking for hours." Carla frowned. "You called her something else a minute ago." "It's a nickname," Vinny said smoothly, eyes never leaving the stranger. "And I don't know who you are, pal, but this girl isn't going anywhere with you." The man's smile did not reach his eyes. "Sir, I don't want trouble. This is a family matter." "Lily, come here now." The command cracked like a whip. The girl whimpered, pressing harder against Vinny. Vinny felt the old rage rise cold, controlled, the kind that had kept him alive through decades of shadows. But this time it mixed with something new, a fierce, almost violent protectiveness that shocked him with its intensity. This child, stranger yet somehow already his to shield, had walked into his darkness and asked for safety. And in that instant, something cracked open inside him, guilt for every life he had failed to protect, remorse for the empire built on fear, a sudden overwhelming surge of love so raw it nearly stole his breath. He stood slowly, unfolding his tall frame, until he towered over the man. The fluorescent light caught the faint scar along his jaw, the quiet menace in his stance. "And I'm going to ask you once," Vinny said, voice gravel low, stepping into the man's space, "to get the hell out before I make this unpleasant for everyone." The stranger did not flinch. He studied Vinny, calculating, unafraid. You're making a mistake, Mr. Russo. A very big one. Vinny's eyes narrowed. His name, spoken casually as if known. The memorial for an old associate tomorrow club business not public. Who was this man? The stranger turned, walked out calmly. He did not run. The SUV waited, engine still idling, headlights pointed at the diner door like eyes. Vinny sat back down. The girl Lily was shaking uncontrollably. He's not my dad, she choked out. My real dad. Mommy said he was gone. But you feel safe. Vinny's chest tightened. He reached out, wiped a smudge of dirt from her cheek with a napkin. Her skin was cold, too thin over sharp bones. Malnutrition. Sleepless nights. Endless cold. What's your name, sweetheart, Lily? She whispered. Lily Harper. Okay, Lily. I'm Vincent. You can call me Vinny. He glanced at the window. The SUV had not moved. You hungry? She nodded, eyes huge. Carla, Vinny called, voice steady. Bring her a cheeseburger, fries, chocolate milk. Put it on my tab. Carla nodded, hurrying off, eyes wide with unspoken questions. Vinny looked back at the girl. She devoured the fries the moment they arrived, eating with the frantic focus of someone who had gone too long without. Each bite seemed to cost her shame flickering across her face, then gratitude so deep it hurt to watch. Inside Vinny, the storm raged fiercer than the one outside. Guilt clawed at him for the empire that thrived on fear, for the children he had never saved, for the man he had become. Yet here was this tiny girl trusting him despite everything. The surge of love hit again, fierce, paternal, overwhelming. He wanted to shield her from the world that had already hurt her so badly. He wanted to destroy anyone who tried again. Outside, another vehicle pulled up, 2 more dark cars. Marco's people. The night was not over. Vinny felt the conflict tear at him, walk away, preserve his carefully balanced life, or stand in the gap for this child who had chosen him in her darkest moment. He looked down at Lily. She had fallen asleep against his side, small hand, clutching his coat sleeve like a lifeline. He rested his hand gently on her head. Over my dead body, he thought. The rain kept falling. The headlights waited. And in the quiet booth, a powerful man began to remember what it felt like to have someone worth protecting more than power itself. The diner lights buzzed, like trapped insects above them. Lily remained pressed against Vincent's side, her small frame curled inward as though trying to disappear into the warmth of his overcoat. Her breathing came in shallow, uneven hitches, each inhale pulling in the faint scent of expensive wool and cologne she had never smelled before, each exhale releasing a tremor she could not control. The cheeseburger sat half-eaten on the plate in front of her. She had taken 3 bites before shame stopped her cold. She stared at the food like it might vanish if she looked away too long. Vincent kept one arm loosely around her shoulders, not tight enough to frighten her, but firm enough that she knew he was there. His other hand rested on the table, fingers curled loosely around the coffee mug that had gone cold. He watched the black SUV through the rain-streaked window. It had not moved. The engine still idled low and patient headlights slicing pale tunnels through the downpour. Inside him, the storm was no longer outside. The surge of protectiveness that had risen when she first whispered those 6 words had not faded, it had sharpened, grown teeth. He felt it clawing at the edges of the armor he had worn for decades, the calculated calm, the emotional distance that kept him alive and in control. Now something raw and unfamiliar tore at those walls. Love not soft, not tentative, but fierce and immediate, the kind that arrives like a blade and refuses to leave. This child, this fragile, starving stranger, had looked at him and seen safety instead of danger. The realization struck him harder than any threat Marco Delgado's people had ever thrown. He had spent years convincing himself he was beyond redemption. The boy who once slept under bridges, in the same South Side projects where Lily had grown up, had become the man who owned half the blocks he once begged on. Every dollar, every contract, every quiet threat had been payment for never being powerless again. Yet here sat proof that power had not erased the hollow place inside him. Guilt rose like bile for every night he had chosen survival over kindness, for every life he had allowed to be crushed under the weight of his ambition, for the years he had convinced himself that children like this one were someone else's problem. Lily lifted her head slowly. Her eyes, huge, shadowed, rimmed with exhaustion, searched his face. Are you really gonna help me? Her voice was so soft it barely carried over the rain. Polite, timid, the voice of a child who had learned early that loudness brought trouble. Vincent swallowed. Yeah, he said. I'm really gonna help you. She blinked, confusion flickering across her features. Then something broke loose inside her, a small, shuddering sob that she tried to swallow. He hurt Mommy. He said if I told anyone he'd her, words fractured. She pressed her lips together, thin shoulders rising toward her ears. Vincent felt the confession land like a physical blow. He had seen enough violence to recognize the shape of it, even when unspoken. He glanced at Carla behind the counter. She was watching them with wide, worried eyes, but stayed back, sensing the gravity. He lowered his voice. "Tell me what happened. Slow. Whatever you can." Lily's fingers twisted in the hem of her hoodie. The fabric was threadbare, the pink faded almost to gray. Mommy worked nights at the diner on Halstead. She came home crying sometimes, said she saw things she wasn't supposed to see. Papers, pictures, bad men moving kids. Her voice dropped to a whisper. She took pictures with her phone, hid them in Mr. Bear. She patted the small, worn teddy peeking from her backpack. Then one night, they came. I heard yelling, glass breaking. Mommy told me to run through the back window. She said find someone strong, someone who might still care. Vincent's jaw tightened until it ached. The words "someone who might still care" echoed inside him like an accusation. He had walked away from Elena Harper 17 years ago, young, scared already, knee-deep in the life that would eventually make him untouchable. He told himself it was to protect her. The truth was uglier. He had been too selfish, too afraid of losing control to let anyone close. Now her daughter sat beside him, starving, bruised, hunted. The bell jingled again. 2 men entered this time. Dark jackets, rain-slicked hair, eyes scanning with the same cold efficiency as the first stranger. They did not pretend to be looking for a lost child. They looked like men sent to finish something. Vincent felt Lily freeze against him. Her small hand found his sleeve and gripped with surprising strength. He rose slowly, deliberate, unhurried. At 6 feet 2 inches in his tailored coat and polished shoes, he filled the space in a way that made the diner feel smaller. The trucker at the counter straightened. The teenagers went silent. One of the newcomers, a stocky man with a scar across his left eyebrow, spoke first. "Mr. Russo, we don't want trouble. Just hand over the kid. She's not yours." Vincent's voice remained calm, almost conversational. "She is tonight." The second man, a taller, leaner figure, stepped forward. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. Marco wants her gone," quietly. The name landed like a spark on dry grass. Marco Delgado, the same man whose people had pushed boundaries earlier that evening. The same man who had been quietly encroaching on Russo territory for months. Vincent felt the old rage stir the cold, familiar fury that had carried him through street fights and boardroom betrayals. But this time it burned hotter, laced with something new terror. Not for himself, for her. He stepped fully between Lily and the men, shielding her with his body. "You walk out that door," he said quietly, "or I make sure you never walk again." The scarred man smiled thinly. Big words for a guy who's supposed to be going legitimate. Vincent did not answer. His hand rested lightly on the edge of the table, close enough to reach the concealed piece beneath his coat if needed. He did not draw. Not here. Not in front of her. Lily whimpered behind him. "Please, don't let them take me." The plea sliced through him. Vincent felt his heart stutter, violent, painful. He had spent years building walls so high no one could reach him. Now a 7-year-old girl had walked through them like they were paper. Outside, the first SUV revved its engine, once short, impatient. A signal. The lean man's hand drifted toward his jacket. Vincent moved faster. He stepped forward, not aggressive, but closing distance until he was inside the man's personal space. Voice low enough that only they could hear. "You touch her, you die tonight. That's not a threat. That's a fact." For a long moment the diner held its breath. Then the scarred man raised both hands in mock surrender. "We'll see you again, Russo. Count on it." They backed toward the door. The bell jingled once more as they left. The SUV pulled away slowly, taillights bleeding red into the rain. Vincent exhaled, long controlled. He turned back to Lily. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Tears streamed silently down her cheeks. "They're gonna come back," she whispered. He knelt in front of her slowly, so as not to startle her. His knees cracked against the linoleum. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the sudden quiet. "They won't get you," he said. "Not while I'm breathing." Lily stared at him, confusion, fear, wonder warring across her thin face. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Vincent felt the question tear something loose inside him. Why? Because she looked like Elena. Because she carried the same hollow-eyed hunger he remembered from his own childhood. Because for the first time in decades he felt something stronger than power, responsibility. Love. The fierce paternal need to protect that he had denied himself for so long it had nearly killed him. Because he said, voice rough, no one should ever have to beg for safety. Lily's lower lip trembled. She reached out, hesitant, trembling, and touched his hand. Her fingers were ice-cold nails bitten to the quick. Vincent closed his hand gently around hers. The contrast was stark, his broad, scarred palm against her fragile, malnourished one. He felt the disparity like a physical wound. His wealth, his power, his heated car. waiting outside his heated home with clean sheets and full refrigerators against the nights she had spent, curled in doorways, wind cutting through thin clothes, stomach cramping from emptiness. He wanted to burn the city down for every injustice she had endured. Instead, he stood, lifted her carefully into his arms. She was lighter than any child should be, bird bones wrapped in worn cotton. She buried her face against his shoulder without hesitation, small arms looping around his neck. Vincent walked toward the door. Carla met his eyes. He nodded once. She understood no police. Not yet. Outside, the rain had eased to a steady drizzle. His black Escalade waited at the curb, sleek armored engine already running remotely from his phone. The interior lights glowed soft gold through tinted windows. He opened the rear door, settled Lily inside, buckled her in with careful hands. She looked tiny against the leather seat pink hoodie, stark against black upholstery. Vincent slid behind the wheel. The engine purred to life, smooth, powerful, expensive. He glanced in the rearview mirror. Lily was watching him, wide-eyed, still trembling, but no longer alone. "Where are we going?" she asked, voice small. "Somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere no one can hurt you." As he pulled away from the curb, headlights appeared in the distance, 2 sets following at a measured distance. Vincent's grip tightened on the wheel. The night was far from over, but for the first time in years, Vincent Russo did not feel empty. He felt needed. And that feeling, sharp, terrifying, beautiful, hurt more than any bullet ever had. The Escalade's tires hissed across wet asphalt as Vincent pulled away from the diner curb. The engine's low growl felt almost protective, smooth, controlled power that contrasted sharply with the chaos clawing at his chest. In the rearview mirror, Lily's small face stared back at him, pale, wide-eyed cheeks streaked with drying tears and rain. She clutched Mr. Bare to her chest like a shield, the stuffed animal's fur matted and thin from years of being her only constant companion. Vincent kept his speed steady, not racing yet, but deliberate. He turned north onto Halsted Street, the city lights blurring into streaks of gold and red through the rain-smeared windshield. The south side unfolded around them, boarded-up storefronts, flickering neon from liquor stores, clusters of people huddled under awnings waiting for buses that ran late and unreliable. Every block reminded him of the boy he once was, hungry, cold, invisible. Now the same streets belonged to him in ways most people would never understand. The disparity burned. Behind them headlights appeared, 2 sets maintaining distance but refusing to fade. Vincent's jaw tightened. Marco's people. They were not giving up. Lily's voice came small from the back seat. "Are they following us?" "Yeah," Vincent said quietly, "but they won't catch us." He turned left onto 59th, then right onto a narrower side street lined with aging 3-flats and chain-link fences. The Escalade handled the tight corners with ease. Its suspension absorbed the potholes that would have jarred a lesser vehicle. Vincent glanced at Lily again. She was shivering not just from cold, but from the bone-deep exhaustion of too many nights spent curled in corners, wind slicing through cracked windows, hunger gnawing until sleep became impossible. Her hoodie sleeves were frayed to threads. The cuffs rode up to reveal wrists so thin the bones stood out like fragile ridges. Vincent felt the sight tear at him, violent, unrelenting. He had spent years amassing wealth, custom-tailored suits, hanging in climate-controlled closets, heated garage floors for his fleet of vehicles, private security that never slept. Yet this child had endured winters without a coat that fit summers, without air-conditioning, meals measured in whatever could be scavenged from trash bins or church handouts. The injustice of it roared inside him louder than any engine. He reached into the center console, pulled out a soft cashmere throw he kept for long drives. Without a word, he passed it back. Lily hesitated, eyes flicking from the blanket to his face, then wrapped it around herself. The fabric swallowed her. She looked even smaller, more fragile. "Thank you," she whispered, voice so polite it hurt. "It's really warm." Vincent swallowed hard. "You're safe now. I promise." The promise felt heavier than any contract he had ever signed. The headlights behind them closed the gap. Vincent accelerated smoothly, weaving through light traffic. A delivery truck lumbered ahead. He slipped past it on the left, just as the pursuing vehicles tried to follow. Horns blared. He turned sharply onto a residential street, quiet, tree-lined, the kind of block where families still tried to hold on despite everything. Suddenly, another black SUV pulled out from a side alley directly in front of them, blocking the road. Vincent braked hard. The Escalade stopped inches from the other vehicle's bumper. Lily gasped, clutching the blanket tighter. 3 men stepped out into the rain, dark jackets, no attempt at subtlety now. One held up a hand in a mocking wave. Vincent's pulse hammered. Old instincts surged, calculate odds, find exits, protect the asset. But the asset was a child, his child, some buried part of him insisted, though he still did not know the full truth. The love that had ignited in the diner had only grown fiercer, more consuming. It warred with the cold pragmatism that had kept him alive. Run them down, call for backup, risk her safety. He chose none of those yet. Instead, he lowered the window halfway. Rain spattered against his cheek. The lead man, broad-shouldered, rain dripping from his shaved head, leaned forward. "Russo, you're out of your depth. Hand her over. Marco's patient, but not forever." Vincent's voice stayed level. "Tell Marco if he wants her, he comes himself. Until then, she stays with me." The man laughed short, humorless. "You think you can play hero, she's just collateral. Evidence in that bear. Once it's gone, she's nothing." Lily whimpered behind him. Vincent felt her small hand grip the back of his seat. Rage, pure, searing, flooded him. Not the calculated anger he used in boardrooms or back rooms. This was primal, protective, fatherly in a way he had never allowed himself to feel before. He pictured Lily's life before tonight, nights spent hiding under thin blankets while wind howled through broken windows, days begging for change outside the very diner where her mother had worked, double shifts just to keep the lights on. The unfairness of it clawed at him until he could barely breathe. He met the man's eyes. "You touch her, you die tonight. Walk away." The man smirked. Big talk. Vincent did not answer. He shifted into reverse tires, spinning briefly on wet pavement before finding traction. The Escalade surged backward, then he spun the wheel hard, executing a precise 180 that left the blocking SUV facing the wrong direction. He floored it. The pursuing vehicles scrambled to turn around. Vincent cut through an alley, narrow, trash-strewn puddles deep enough to hydroplane, but the Escalade's all-wheel drive and high clearance ate the obstacles. He emerged onto 63rd Street, heading west toward the expressway. Lily was crying now, soft, hiccuping sobs. I'm sorry I got you in trouble." Vincent's heart fractured. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said fiercely. "None of this is your fault." He reached back with one hand. She took it immediately, small, cold fingers wrapping around his. The trust in that grip nearly undid him. They hit the entrance ramp to the Dan Ryan Expressway. Vincent merged into traffic weaving between semis and sedans. The headlights reappeared behind them, persistent closing. He pushed the Escalade harder. 80 miles per hour. 90. The city blurred past sodium lights, graffiti-covered overpasses, the distant glow of downtown skyscrapers he partially owned. Lily's breathing grew ragged. "My tummy hurts," she whispered, "and my head's spinning. Hunger, dehydration, adrenaline crash." Vincent cursed under his breath. He took the next exit toward a quieter stretch near Washington Park, then pulled into the empty lot of a closed gas station. The canopy lights were off. Only the rain provided illumination. He killed the engine. Silence rushed in, broken only by the patter on the roof. Vincent turned in his seat. Lily looked dazed, eyes glassy, skin clammy. Shock setting in. He unbuckled, climbed into the back beside her. Gently, he lifted her onto his lap, wrapping the cashmere throw tighter. "Breathe slow," he murmured. "In through your nose, out through your mouth. You're okay." She leaned against his chest, small, trembling. "I'm scared," she admitted in a tiny voice. "I know." Vincent rested his chin lightly on her head. Her hair smelled faintly of strawberry and desperation. "But I've got you." In that moment, the world narrowed to the two of them. Outside, rain drummed. Somewhere Marco's men were circling. But here, inside the warm, leather-scented cocoon of the Escalade, Vincent felt the full weight of what had happened. This child had chosen him, not because of his money, his power, his name, because she sensed safety. The realization tore through him, violent, numbing, beautiful. Guilt for every year he had chosen isolation over connection. Remorse for abandoning Elena when she needed him most. A fierce, burning love that refused to be reasoned away. He would protect her. Not as a favor, not as charity, as his own. Headlights swept across the lot, slow searching. Vincent tensed. Lily felt it. She clutched his coat harder. He started the engine again, quietly this time. "We're moving," he said softly. "Hold on." He eased out of the lot, headlights off, using only the ambient city glow. The pursuing vehicles passed by on the main road, close enough to hear their engines, far enough not to see. Vincent turned south again toward the lakefront, toward one of his secure properties on the near south side. A penthouse few people knew about. Safe, warm, stocked. Lily's head lolled against his shoulder as exhaustion finally claimed her. Vincent drove on through the rain. His heart, once cold steel, now beat with something alive, something painful, something unbreakable. He had lost too much in his life. He would not lose her. The penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a discreet glass tower overlooking Lake Michigan. From the outside, it looked like any other luxury high-rise in the South, loop, sleek, anonymous, expensive. Inside, it was a fortress disguised as comfort, floor-to-ceiling windows tinted against prying eyes, bullet-resistant glass, biometric locks, silent alarm systems tied directly to Vincent's private security team. The elevator opened directly into the foyer. No lobby, no doorman, no witnesses. Vincent carried Lily across the threshold. She had fallen into a fitful doze against his shoulder during the final stretch of the drive, her breathing shallow and uneven. Now, as the warm air of the apartment enveloped her, she stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, confused, disoriented, then widened as the reality of where she was registered. The living room stretched before them, like something from a magazine she had once seen in a doctor's waiting room. Dark hardwood floors polished to a mirror shine, cream leather sofas long enough to seat 10 abstract paintings on the perfect, walls that cost more than most people earned in a decade. A gas fireplace flickered silently behind tempered glass. The scent of clean linen and faint cedar drifted from hidden vents. Soft, recessed lighting bathed everything in a gentle amber glow. Lily's small body went rigid in his arms. Vincent felt the shift immediately. He lowered her carefully onto the nearest sofa, kneeling so their eyes were level. "You're safe here," he said quietly. "No one can get in without me knowing." She looked around, slow, dazed. Her gaze lingered on the massive windows, showing the dark expanse of the Lake City lights glittering like scattered diamonds far below. Then back to him. Then to her own hands, dirty nails, chapped skin, the frayed cuffs of her hoodie that now seemed even more out of place against the pristine surroundings. "I've never been anywhere like this," she whispered. Her voice cracked on the last word. Shame flickered across her face, quick, humiliating, the kind that comes from realizing how small and unwanted you look in a place built for giants. Vincent's chest constricted. He remembered that feeling too well the first time he had stepped into a real office instead of a back alley deal. The way his worn sneakers had squeaked against marble floors. The way people had looked at him like he had wandered in by mistake. He had turned that shame into armor, but seeing it on her raw, fresh, undeserved felt like a fresh wound. He reached out slowly, brushed a damp strand of hair from her forehead. "You belong here tonight," he said. "That's all that matters." Lily swallowed. Her eyes filled again, not with tears this time, but with something deeper, confusion warring with fragile hope. Vincent stood. "You need food. Real food. And a bath. Warm clothes." He moved to the kitchen, open plan, stainless steel, and black granite appliances that hummed softly like they were waiting to serve. He opened the refrigerator stocked with fresh produce, organic milk, prepared meals from a private chef he rarely used. The contrast hit him like a physical blow. How many nights had this child gone to bed with an empty stomach, while food like this sat untouched in his home? He warmed a bowl of chicken noodle soup, simple, gentle on an empty stomach, then poured a glass of milk. When he returned, Lily had not moved. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap as though afraid to touch anything. Vincent set the tray on the coffee table. "Eat slow," he said. "Your stomach isn't used to much at once." She stared at the bowl. Steam rose in delicate curls. The smell of broth and herbs filled the air, comforting, nourishing. Her hands trembled as she lifted the spoon. The first sip made her eyes close. A small involuntary sound escaped her, half sob, half sigh. Vincent sat on the opposite end of the sofa, giving her space, but close enough to reach if she needed him. He watched her eat small, careful bites, chewing slowly as though afraid the food might disappear. Each swallow seemed to cost her something, gratitude mixed with disbelief, shame that she needed this help at all. When the bowl was half empty, she set the spoon down. "Thank you," she said softly. "Mommy always said to say thank you when someone's kind." Vincent's throat tightened. "Your mommy sounds like a good woman." Lily nodded. Tears welled again. She was. She tried so hard. Worked every shift they'd give her. Still, we never had enough. The landlord kept raising rent. The heat got turned off in January. We slept in coats and blankets. Sometimes I'd wake up and my fingers would be numb. Her voice grew smaller. I didn't tell her how cold I was. I didn't want her to feel worse. Vincent felt the words land like punches, each one landing deeper than the last. He pictured it too clearly, a tiny apartment wind whistling through cracked windows, a mother working herself to exhaustion while her daughter shivered under thin covers. The unfairness of it roared inside him, mixing with the guilt that had simmered for years. He had the means to change lives like hers had always had the means, and yet he had chosen distance control, isolation. Lily reached into her backpack, pulled out Mr. Bear. The teddy's fur was worn almost smooth in places. One eye dangled by a thread. She hugged it tight. Mommy said if anything happened to her, give Mr. Bear to someone who could help. Someone strong. She looked up at Vincent's eyes, searching, hopeful, terrified. She said, "Maybe my dad would come back someday. But he didn't. He's gone." Vincent froze. Lily hesitated, then turned the bear over. With small, careful fingers, she worked at a seam on its back stitches that had been carefully resewn with mismatched thread. She pulled out a folded piece of paper, creased, worn thin from handling. It was a photograph, faded, but clear enough. A younger Elena Harper, smiling radiant, stood beside a much younger Vincent, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing. Behind them, Lake Michigan shimmered under summer sun. Vincent's breath caught. The room tilted. Lily watched his face. Mommy kept this hidden. She said, "You were good once, before things got hard. She said you left because you thought it was safer for us." Her voice trembled. "She never told me your name, just that you were strong, and that, maybe, if I needed you, you'd remember." Vincent took the photo with hands that shook, something he had not allowed since he was a boy. The image stared back at him, proof of a life he had walked away from. A woman who had loved him despite everything. A child he had never known existed. The truth crashed over him, violent, numbing, shattering. Lily was his daughter. His daughter. The realization tore through every defense he had built. Guilt, long suppressed, erupted like a wound reopened. Remorse for abandoning Elena when she told him she was pregnant, too scared, too selfish, too deep in the life to believe he could be anything but poison. Years of telling himself it was better this way. Years of silence. And all the while this child had grown up hungry, cold, hunted, because he had chosen power over family. He looked at Lily, really looked. The shape of her eyes, the stubborn set of her chin, echoes of Elena, echoes of himself. Tears burned behind his eyes, hot, unfamiliar. He had not cried since he was 12. Lily's voice came soft, timid. "Are you mad?" Vincent shook his head, slow, emphatic. "No," he rasped. "I'm not mad. I'm so sorry." He reached out. She did not flinch. Instead, she leaned forward, hesitant at first, then desperate, and wrapped her thin arms around his neck. Vincent pulled her close, careful, reverent. Her small body fit against his chest like it had always belonged there. She smelled of rain, soup, and something achingly familiar, something that might have been home once. "I didn't know," he whispered against her hair. "I swear I didn't know." Lily's voice muffled against his shoulder. "Mommy said you'd come if I really needed you." Vincent closed his eyes. The love that had ignited in the diner now burned with searing clarity, paternal, fierce, absolute. It hurt. It healed. It remade him in the space of a heartbeat. Outside the city glittered, indifferent, beautiful, cruel. Inside, a father held his daughter for the first time, and the walls he had built around his heart cracked wide open. He would protect her, not as a debt, not as charity, as blood, as family, as everything he had denied himself for too long. The rain kept falling against the windows, but for the first time in decades, Vincent Russo did not feel alone in the storm. The penthouse clock on the mantel showed just past 2 in the morning, but time had lost meaning. The rain had eased to a soft patter against the windows, and the city below looked almost peaceful, lights twinkling like distant stars reflected in black water. Inside, the gas fireplace cast warm, flickering shadows across the living room. Lily sat curled on the sofa under the cashmere throw, Mr. Bear tucked under one arm, her small frame finally beginning to relax. She had bathed. Vincent had drawn her a tub of hot water scented with gentle lavender bubbles he kept for guests who never came, and now wore one of his softest t-shirts, the fabric hanging past her knees like a dress. Clean socks swallowed her feet. Her damp hair smelled faintly of shampoo, a scent so ordinary and clean it made Vincent's throat close. He had not slept. He sat in the armchair opposite her, elbows on his knees, watching her breathe. Every rise and fall of her chest felt like a miracle he did not deserve. The photograph of Elena still rested on the coffee table between them, silent witness, quiet accusation. Vincent had stared at it until the edges blurred. 17 years. 17 years of silence. 17 years of letting a child grow up believing her father was dead or gone or simply indifferent. Lily stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, heavy with exhaustion, but clearer now. "You're still here," she whispered. Vincent managed a small, rough smile. "Where else would I be?" She sat up a little, clutching the blanket. I have to tell you something." Her voice trembled, soft, polite, but urgent. "There's someone else. My best friend, Mia. She's still back there, in the projects. If they find her because of me..." Her lower lip quivered. "She's only got me. Her mom. She's not always... Okay. Mia gets scared at night. She hides under the bed sometimes when it's bad." Vincent felt the words land like stones in still water, ripples spreading through the fragile calm he had tried to build. Another child. Another life hanging by threads. He could snap with a phone call or a decision, where he asked quietly. Lily gave him the address, 47th and Kedzie, a crumbling brick building he knew too well. He had owned properties on that block once, sold them when the headaches grew too large. The memory tasted bitter. He stood. "Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me." Lily's eyes widened, fear flashing bright and immediate. "You're leaving. I'm coming back," he said, kneeling again. He cupped her cheek gently. "With Mia, I promise." She searched his face, long searching, then nodded once. Small, trusting. The weight of that trust nearly buckled his knees. Vincent took the private elevator down to the garage. His black Escalade waited still warm from the earlier drive. He slid behind the wheel, the leather creaking softly under his weight. The engine purred awake. He pulled out into the night. The streets were empty at this hour, rain-slicked, reflective, ghostly. He drove south again, past sleeping high-rises, past the glittering downtown he helped shape into the darker arteries of the south side. The buildings grew shorter, sadder. Streetlights flickered. Chain-link fences leaned. Graffiti tags bled down brick walls. He parked a block away from the address, out of sight, engine off. Rain dripped from fire escapes. He pulled up the hood of his dark jacket, stepped into the wet night. The building smelled of mildew and old cooking grease, even from the hallway. The stairwell light buzzed and died halfway up. Vincent moved silently old habits from years ago until he reached the third floor. Apartment 312. The door was scarred, the paint peeling in long curls. He knocked, soft but firm. Silence. Then a small voice from inside, wary sharp. "Who's there?" Mia. Vincent kept his tone low, calm. "I'm a friend of Lily's. She sent me. She's safe. She wants you to come with me." Long pause. Then the sound of a chain sliding, a deadbolt turning. The door cracked open. Mia stood there, 7 years old, dark hair in uneven braids, wearing mismatched pajamas, too short at the wrists and ankles. Her eyes were huge, suspicious, the eyes of a child who had learned early that adults lie. Behind her, the apartment was dim, single bulb, overhead couch, sagging a small television, flickering blue light across peeling wallpaper. Empty takeout containers on the coffee table. The air smelled faintly of smoke and neglect. Mia stared up at Vincent, taking in his height, his coat, the quiet menace he could never fully hide. "You're lying," she said flatly. "Lily wouldn't send some rich guy. She'd come herself." Vincent crouched slowly, bringing himself to her level. "She wanted to, but it's not safe right now. Bad people are looking for her. She's at my place. Warm, fed, safe. She begged me to come get you." Mia's eyes narrowed. "Why should I believe you? Because she told me you hide under the bed when it's bad at home," Vincent said quietly. "And she said you're the bravest person she knows. She's scared for you, Mia. Not for herself. For you." Something flickered in Mia's expression, hurt, anger, longing. She glanced over her shoulder into the dim apartment. A woman's voice slurred from somewhere deeper inside, half asleep, half gone. Mia's shoulders hunched. "If you're lying, I'll scream. People will hear." Vincent nodded once. "Fair." She studied him another long moment, then stepped aside. Vincent entered. The apartment was colder than the hallway. A cracked window let in a steady draft. The couch had a blanket folded neatly at one end, Mia's bed, he realized. No other bedroom door in sight. Mia grabbed a small backpack from the floor, already packed as though she had been waiting for an escape that never came. She zipped it with shaking hands. "Let's go," she said. They moved quickly down the stairs. Outside, the rain had picked up again. Vincent kept Mia close, his hand light on her shoulder, guiding without crowding. She walked stiffly, eyes darting to every shadow. Halfway to the Escalade, headlights flared from the cross street. 2 dark sedans, slow, deliberate, turned the corner and rolled toward them. Vincent's pulse kicked hard. He pulled Mia behind a parked van, pressing her gently against the cold metal. "Stay low," he murmured. Mia's breathing came fast, shallow, terrified. "They're looking for Lily. And now for you, Vincent," said grimly. The sedan slowed, searching. One window lowered. A man leaned out, scanning the sidewalk. Vincent weighed options: run for the Escalade, risk exposure. Wait them out, risk them circling back. Confront risk escalation. He chose the middle path. He stepped out, slow, deliberate, hands, visible, non-threatening. Mia stayed hidden. The lead sedan stopped. The same scarred man from the diner leaned out the passenger window. "Russo, you collecting strays now," Vincent's voice carried calm authority. "Go home, Tony. This doesn't end well for you." Tony laughed short, ugly. "Marco says the kid's got friends. Means leverage. Step aside." Vincent took 1 step forward. Last warning. The driver revved the engine, threat without action. The second sedan edged closer. Vincent's hand drifted to his side, close to the concealed holster, but he did not draw. Not yet. Instead, he spoke low, clear. "You touch either girl, I end every quiet deal Marco's got left in this city. You know I can." Silence stretched rain, drumming on hoods, tension thick enough to choke. Tony stared, calculating, then spat on the pavement. This ain't over. The sedans rolled forward, slow menacing, then turned the corner and disappeared. Vincent exhaled. He returned to Mia. She was shaking, eyes wide, fists clenched. You scared them off, she whispered. They're scared of losing more than they're scared of me, Vincent said. He offered his hand. Mia stared at it, long conflicted, then took it. Her fingers were cold, small, calloused from too many chores no child should do. They reached the escalade. Vincent opened the back door. Mia climbed in, hesitant, guarded. She saw Lily waiting, curled on the seat blanket, pulled tight, and something in her posture softened. Lily's eyes flew open. She lunged forward, thin arms wrapping around Mia in a fierce hug. You came, Lily sobbed. You really came. Mia hugged back, awkward at first, then desperate. I wasn't gonna let them take you without me. Vincent slid behind the wheel. The engine purred. He pulled away, slow, careful, watching the mirrors. In the back seat, two small girls clung to each other, sisters not by blood but by shared nights of hunger and fear. Vincent glanced in the rear view. Mia met his eyes, still wary, still guarded, but something had shifted. A tiny crack. Not trust. Not yet. But possibility. Vincent's heart twisted, painful, hopeful. 2 children. 2 lives he had not known existed until tonight. 2 futures he could shape or fail. The city lights blurred past. And inside the warm, armored Escalade, Vincent Russo felt the weight of fatherhood not just to one child, but to 2 settle on his shoulders like a mantle he could no longer refuse. The road ahead was dark, but for the first time he did not travel it alone. The private elevator doors slid open with a soft chime depositing Vincent, Lily, and Mia directly into the penthouse foyer. The city lights beyond the windows had dimmed to a faint shimmer dawn, still hours away, but the apartment felt warmer, safer, more alive with the presence of 2 small girls instead of 1. Vincent guided them inside one hand, resting lightly between their shoulder blades. Lily walked close to his side, small fingers occasionally brushing his coat sleeve, as though testing he was still real. Mia stayed a half step behind, watchful, silent, her backpack clutched like armor. Vincent flicked on softer lamps. The living room glowed gently, fireplace still flickering, sofas inviting the faint scent of clean cotton and cedar wrapping around them like a blanket. He knelt to their level. You're both safe here, he said quietly. No one comes up without my say-so. Bedrooms are down the hall, clean sheets, warm blankets, whatever you need. Lily nodded, small, trusting. Mia gave a curt dip of her chin, eyes still scanning corners as though waiting for the trap to spring. Vincent showed them to the guest suite, 2 twin beds pushed close together, thick duvets and soft gray nightlights already plugged in along the baseboards. A small bathroom adjoined fluffy towels, new toothbrushes still in packages, gentle soap that smelled faintly of vanilla. He had never used this room. It had waited empty and perfect, like a promise he had never intended to keep. Mia touched one of the pillows, hesitant as though it might disappear. These are really for us, Vincent's throat tightened. Yeah. All night. As long as you want. Lily climbed onto the nearest bed. The mattress barely dipped under her slight weight. She pulled the duvet up to her chin and looked at Vincent with those wide blue eyes that now carried echoes of Elena's gaze. You're staying close, right across the hall, he promised. Door open. I'll hear you. Mia climbed in beside Lily, still guarded but exhaustion winning. She pulled the covers up without a word. Vincent lingered in the doorway a moment longer, watching their small forms settle, listening to the soft rhythm of their breathing slow. Then he stepped back, pulled the door almost closed, and retreated to the living room. He did not sit. He paced slow, silent past the windows, past the fireplace, past the photograph, still lying on the coffee table like an open wound. The guilt that had cracked him open earlier now burned hotter, deeper. 2 children. 2 girls who had spent years cold, hungry, afraid while he slept in silk sheets, on 1,000 thread-count linens, while chefs prepared meals he barely touched, while security teams watched over an empire built on the very fear he now despised in others. The disparity felt obscene, criminal, unforgivable. He stopped at the window. Lake Michigan stretched dark and endless below. Somewhere out there, Marco's people were regrouping, planning, waiting. Vincent knew the playbook. He had written parts of it himself. The first warning came at 3:47 in the morning. A soft chime from the security panel perimeter breach on the service-level garage. Vincent's phone vibrated simultaneously, encrypted alert from his team. 3 vehicles. Armed. Moving fast. He moved without thought, old instincts overriding everything. He crossed to the hall closet, opened the concealed safe behind the coats. Inside a compact 9mm pistol, 2 spare magazines, a tactical vest he had not worn in years. He strapped the vest on under his shirt, quick practice, then tucked the pistol into the small of his back. He returned to the guest room doorway. Lily and Mia slept small chests, rising and falling in unison. Lily's hand rested on Mia's arm, even in sleep, protecting her friend. Vincent felt the sight tear something final loose inside him. He would not let them wake to violence. Not tonight. Not ever again. He took the private elevator down to the garage level alone. The service doors were already breached when he arrived. 3 men in dark tactical gear moved through the shadows between parked cars, suppressed rifles slung low flashlights cutting sharp beams. They froze when Vincent stepped into the open. He raised both hands, slow, deliberate. "No weapon visible. Gentlemen," he said calmly. "You're trespassing." The lead man's stocky, scarred eyebrow stepped forward. "Russo. Marco wants the girls. Evidence. You hand them over quiet, we walk. You don't, we take them anyway." Vincent's voice stayed even. "Not happening." Scarred brow laughed once, short, ugly. "You're 1 man. We're 3. Armed. You really want to do this?" Vincent took 1 step closer. "I've done worse odds." The second man raised his rifle, slow, confident. Vincent moved faster. He closed the distance in 2 strides, hands snapping out to grip the barrel, twisting hard. The rifle clattered to the concrete. He drove an elbow into the man's throat, not to kill, to disable. The attacker dropped, gasping. Scarred brow fired, suppressed shot cracking past Vincent's ear, sparking off a concrete pillar. Vincent rolled behind a parked SUV, came up firing once center mass controlled. The man's staggered vest catching the round, but the impact knocked him back. The third man hesitated, rifle wavering. Vincent stood slow, deliberate, pistol steady. "Last chance. Walk away." The third man looked at his fallen partners, then at Vincent's face. Something in those storm cloud eyes made him lower the weapon. They retreated, dragging their wounded back through the breached door. Engines roared outside, tires screeched. Silence returned, broken only by Vincent's controlled breathing. He felt the burn across his left shoulder graze wound shallow but bleeding steadily through his shirt. Pain flared hot, then dulled to a steady throb. He ignored it. There would be time for that later. He returned to the penthouse elevator ride, feeling endless. When the doors opened, Lily stood in the foyer barefoot, drowning in his t-shirt, eyes huge with terror. "I heard noises," she whispered. I thought Vincent dropped to 1 knee, wincing as the motion pulled at the wound. "It's over. They're gone." Lily's gaze dropped to the spreading dark stain on his shoulder. Her face crumpled. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," he lied. She stepped forward, hesitant, then pressed her small hands against the wound. Her fingers were cold, trembling. "Don't move," she said softly. "Mommy said pressure stops bleeding." Vincent froze, breath catching. Her touch, so small, so careful, felt like fire and balm at once. Tears welled in her eyes. "You got hurt because of me," she choked. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Vincent covered her hands with his gently, reverently. "No," he rasped. "I got hurt protecting what matters." "That's different." Mia appeared in the hallway, eyes wide, fists clenched. She stared at the blood, at Vincent's face, at Lily's tears. Something shifted in her expression, wary suspicion, cracking, giving way to reluctant awe. Vincent looked at them both, 2 small girls who had known too much cold, too much hunger, too much fear, and now, because of him, blood on silk carpet. The guilt roared louder than ever, mixed with a fierce, burning love that refused to be silenced. He had failed Elena. He had failed them for years without knowing, but tonight he had stood between them and harm. Lily leaned forward, pressed her forehead against his chest. "Don't die," she whispered. "Please don't die." Vincent wrapped his arms around her, careful of the wound, and pulled Mia close too when she finally stepped forward. 3 small bodies against his fragile, trusting alive. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. The words felt like a vow carved into bone. Outside, the city slept. Inside, a wounded man began slowly, painfully to heal. Because 2 little girls refused to let him bleed alone. Dawn crept pale and reluctant over Lake Michigan, turning the black water to bruised silver. Inside the penthouse, the air felt thick with waiting. Vincent stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, left shoulder bandaged beneath a fresh black shirt, the faint sting of the graze, a constant reminder of how close the night had come to ending differently. He had not slept. Sleep felt like surrender now, and he refused to yield even an inch. Behind him on the long cream sofa, Lily and Mia slept curled together under the same duvet, small limbs, tangled faces, slack with the deep exhaustion only children can reach. Lily's hand rested protectively over Mia's wrist even in dreams. The sight pierced Vincent deeper than the bullet had. 2 girls who had known hunger so constant it became background noise, cold so persistent it settled into bones, fear so routine it shaped every decision. And now they slept in a place where the thermostat never dropped below 72 degrees, where the refrigerator held more food than they had seen in months, where the only sound was the soft hush of conditioned air. The contrast felt obscene. Criminal. He had built this life, every marble floor, every security camera, every dollar in offshore accounts, on the premise that power insulated him from pain. Yet here were two children whose very existence accused him power had not protected them. It had left them to suffer while he accumulated more. His phone vibrated once, silent alert from his perimeter team. Multiple vehicles approaching the building's service entrance. Not subtle, not hiding. Marco had decided to stop playing careful. Vincent exhaled slowly. The rage that had simmered since the garage confrontation now burned cold and focused. He crossed to the guest suite, knelt beside the sofa. "Girls," he murmured. "Wake up." Lily stirred first, eyes fluttering open, confusion giving way to instant fear when she saw his face. "They're coming," Vincent said quietly. "We have to move." Mia sat up fast, already reaching for her backpack. "How many?" Enough, Vincent answered. "But we're not staying here to find out." He helped them dress quickly, oversized sweatshirts and socks from his closet, the only things small enough to fit over their thin frames. Lily's hoodie sleeves swallowed her hands. Mia rolled hers up with practiced efficiency. They looked impossibly small against the luxury surroundings, two fragile birds in a gilded cage that had suddenly become a trap. Vincent led them to the private service stairwell hidden behind a panel in the kitchen pantry. The stairs were concrete and cold emergency lighting, casting harsh shadows. He carried Lily when her legs began to shake. Mia kept pace beside him, silent, determined. They emerged into the underground garage level, not the main one, but a secondary tunnel used for deliveries. Vincent's secondary vehicle waited, a low-profile black Suburban with tinted windows and reinforced panels. He buckled the girls into the back seat, wrapped them in blankets from the cargo area. "Stay down," he said, "no matter what." Lily nodded, small, brave. Mia gripped her friend's hand so tightly their knuckles whitened. Vincent slid behind the wheel. The engine started with a low, reassuring rumble. He eased out of the tunnel and onto the service alley behind the building. Two black SUVs blocked the exit engines, idling headlights off. 4 men stood in front, armed, waiting. Vincent stopped. Silence stretched, rain beginning again, soft and steady on the roof. The lead man, Tony, the scarred one from before, stepped forward. "Russo. End of the line. Marco wants the bear. And the girls. You hand them over, we let you walk." Vincent's voice carried calm authority through the cracked window. "Not happening." Tony smiled, thin, dangerous. "You're bleeding. You're tired. You're 1 man against 6. Think about the kids." Vincent glanced in the rear view. Lily's face was pale, eyes huge. Mia's jaw was set, stubborn, terrified. He looked back at Tony. "You touch them, you die tonight." Tony raised his hand signal. The SUVs moved slow, closing the gap. Vincent floored it. The Suburban surged forward, tires spinning briefly on wet concrete before finding grip. He aimed straight for the narrow gap between the blocking vehicles. Metal scraped metal. Sparks flew. The lead SUV lurched aside, just enough. Vincent shot through rear bumper, clipping one taillight in a shower of red plastic. He hit the main street, accelerating hard. Headlights flared behind him, pursuit immediate, relentless. Chicago unfolded in wet streaks, empty early morning streets, sodium lamps bleeding orange, the Dan Ryan Expressway entrance ramp ahead. Vincent took it, merging into sparse traffic, pushing the Suburban to 90 miles per hour. The girls clung to each other in the back, silent, shaking. Mia's voice broke the quiet, small, fierce. "Don't let them get us." "I won't," Vincent promised. A black SUV appeared on the left, trying to run him off the road. Vincent swerved, controlled precise cutting across lanes. Horns blared. The SUV missed by inches, tires screeching. Another vehicle closed from the right ramming attempt. Vincent braked hard, letting them overshoot, then accelerated again, slipping past. The girls whimpered, soft, terrified sounds that tore at him worse than any impact. He took the next exit, downtown streets now narrower, more crowded even at this hour. Delivery trucks, early commuters, red lights. He ran without hesitation. A final SUV cut him off at Michigan Avenue, blocking the intersection. Vincent slammed the brakes. The Suburban skidded to a stop inches from the other vehicle's bumper. Tony stepped out, pistol visible but not raised. 4 more men flanked him. Vincent killed the engine. Silence rushed in, rain drumming, distant sirens, his own heartbeat loud in his ears. He turned to the girls. "Stay here. Doors locked." Lily grabbed his sleeve, desperate. "Don't go." "I have to end this," he said softly. "For you. For both of you." Mia met his eyes, wary trust finally breaking through. "Come back." Vincent nodded, once sharp, solemn. He stepped out into the rain. Tony smiled, slow, satisfied. "Smart choice. Hand over the bear. Walk away." Vincent stood motionless, rain soaking his shirt, blood seeping through the bandage again. "You want the evidence. Come take it." Tony raised the pistol, slow, deliberate. Vincent moved fast, fluid closing distance before the man could react. He slapped the gun aside. It clattered across wet pavement. Tony swung. Vincent blocked, countered controlled strikes meant to disable, not kill. The other men rushed forward. Chaos erupted, rain-slicked streets, shouts, the dull thud of fists and elbows. Vincent fought like a man, protecting more than his own life, every block, every strike fueled by the faces in the suburban behind him. He took a hard blow to the ribs, air exploding from his lungs. Another grazed his wounded shoulder, fresh pain flaring white-hot. He staggered but did not fall. Then Mia's scream cut through the noise, high, terrified. One of the attackers had circled to the suburban, yanking at the locked door, trying to reach inside. Vincent roared, primal, protective, and charged. He tackled the man away from the vehicle, both crashing to the pavement. The attacker's head struck concrete. He went limp. Vincent rose, breathing hard, blood mixing with rain on his face. The remaining men hesitated, seeing Tony on his knees, seeing Vincent still standing. Sirens wailed closer, police now drawn by the chaos. Tony spat blood. "This isn't over, Russo." Vincent looked down at him, cold, final. "It is for tonight." He backed toward the suburban eyes, never leaving the group, then slid inside, locked the doors, started the engine. The men scattered, melting into alleys as red and blue lights flashed at the end of the block. Vincent pulled away, slow, careful, merging into traffic. In the back seat, Lily and Mia clung to each other, shaking, crying softly. Vincent glanced in the rear view. "You're okay," he said, voice rough breaking. "You're both okay." Mia wiped her eyes, small, fierce. "You got hurt again." Vincent managed a crooked smile. "Worth it." Lily reached forward, small hand resting on his uninjured shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "For fighting for us." Vincent felt the words land like sunlight after endless night. The love that had burned since the diner now blazed fierce, paternal absolute. It hurt. It healed. It remade him. He drove north toward another safe house, another layer of protection. Behind him, two small girls held each other close. Ahead, a man who had spent decades running from connection finally stopped, and began slowly, painfully to run toward it instead. The safe house stood on a quiet, tree-lined street in Lincoln Park, unassuming red brick on the outside, fortified calm within. Vincent had bought the property years earlier through a shell company, one of several bolt holes scattered across the city for nights when trust ran thin. Tonight, the house felt different. Not just shelter, not just strategy. Home in the raw, aching way, a place becomes home when it holds the only things that matter. He carried the girls inside, Lily first, then Mia, both too exhausted to walk the last few steps. The foyer smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh linen. Soft recessed lights came on automatically as they crossed the threshold. A wide living room opened ahead, deep leather armchairs, a stone fireplace already laid with logs, bookshelves filled with volumes no one had ever read. Beyond the windows, the street lay silent under old oaks, dripping with the last of the night's rain. Vincent settled them on the oversized sectional sofa blankets drawn from a cedar chest pillows fluffed behind small backs. Lily curled immediately against his side. Mia hesitated, then leaned in too wary, trust finally winning over instinct. Their thin frames barely made an impression on the cushions. Vincent draped a thick wool throw over them, both soft gray cashmere, that had cost more than a month's rent in the projects they had fled. Lily's eyes fluttered half open. "We're really safe now." Vincent rested a hand lightly on her head. "Yeah, Peanut, really safe." Mia watched him, eyes still shadowed, still measuring. "How long? Long as it takes," Vincent answered. "Until Marco's finished. Until the evidence is out of his reach." He moved to the kitchen, open to the living room so they could see him. Stainless steel appliances gleamed under pendant lights. He warmed milk in a small copper saucepan, added honey and a whisper of vanilla. 2 mugs, simple white porcelain, soon steamed gently on a tray. He carried them back, knelt again. "Drink slow," he said. "It'll help you sleep." Lily took hers with both hands, fingers trembling slightly from lingering adrenaline. She sipped, eyes closing at the warmth, the sweetness. A tiny sound escaped her, half sigh, half sob. Mia accepted hers more slowly. She stared into the mug as though it might hold answers. "Nobody ever made me hot milk before," she said quietly. "Not even my mom." Vincent felt the words land like a quiet blade. He sat on the floor in front of them, back against the coffee table, so they were eye to eye. "You deserve it," he said simply. "Every night, every morning, whatever you need." Silence settled, thick, tender. The fireplace crackled softly. Outside, a distant siren wailed once, then faded. Inside, 3 hearts beat in unsteady rhythm. Vincent's phone buzzed, encrypted line from his most trusted lieutenant, a man named Reyes, who had been with him since the early days. He stepped into the hallway to take the call, keeping the girls in sight. Boss Reyes said without preamble, "We got copies of the drive. Photos, ledgers, video. It's enough to bury Marco 10 times over. We leaked the first batch to 2 investigative reporters, one at the Tribune, one independent. They're running with it at first light. Feds are already sniffing. Marco's people are scrambling some already talking plea deals. Vincent exhaled long, controlled. Good. Keep pressure on. No mercy. Understood. And the girls, safe. With me. A pause. You sure about this, Vin? This ain't just business anymore. Vincent looked back at the sofa, Lily's head resting on Mia's shoulder, both already drifting again. It never was, he said quietly. Not tonight. He ended the call, returned to the living room. The girls were awake, barely eyes heavy, but fixed on him. Lily spoke first, voice small, polite, trembling. Is the bad man gonna go to jail? Vincent knelt again. Yeah. He's going away for a long time. The things he did hurting people, taking kids, he can't hide from them anymore. Mia's voice came softer, almost a whisper. And us? What happens to us? Vincent felt the question tear through him, sharp, unrelenting. He had spent decades avoiding exactly this attachment responsibility, the risk of failing someone who mattered. Now failure was unthinkable. You stay with me, he said, voice rough with emotion. He could no longer hide. As long as you want. As long as it takes to make sure you're never cold, never hungry, never scared again. Lily's lower lip trembled. Like family. Vincent swallowed hard. Exactly like family. Mia looked down at her mug, fingers tight around the porcelain. Nobody ever wanted us before. Not really. Vincent reached out slow, careful, tilted her chin up gently. I want you. Both of you. More than anything I've ever wanted. Tears spilled down Mia's cheeks, silent, sudden. She set the mug aside and leaned forward, small arms wrapping around his neck. Lily followed, thin body pressing close, face buried against his shoulder. Vincent held them, arms encircling two fragile lives that had somehow become the center of his world. The wealth around them, the heated floors, the stocked pantry, the security that never slept, felt suddenly meaningless. What mattered was here, two small hearts beating against his chest, two small voices whispering thanks between sobs. He carried them to the bedrooms, Lily first, then Mia, tucking them in with careful hands. Fresh pajamas waited, soft cotton sets he had ordered delivered hours earlier. Nightlights glowed softly. He left the door's cracked hallway light on. Back in the living room, Vincent sank onto the sofa, head in hands. The bandage on his shoulder throbbed in time with his pulse. Pain, physical, emotional, crashed over him in waves. Guilt for every year he had chosen solitude over connection. Remorse for abandoning Elena when she needed him most. A violent, aching love for two girls who had walked into his darkness and refused to leave. He stared at the fireplace, flames dancing behind glass, and felt something shift inside him. Not peace, not yet. But possibility. Redemption. A future where power served protection instead of distance. Morning came slowly gray, light filtering through heavy drapes. Vincent had not moved. When the girls patted out hair, messy eyes sleepy, he was waiting with breakfast on the coffee table, scrambled eggs, fresh fruit, warm toast with strawberry jam. Simple food made with care. Lily climbed onto the sofa beside him. You didn't sleep. Not yet, he admitted. Mia sat on his other side, closer than before. You're still bleeding a little. Vincent glanced at the bandage, fresh red seeping through. It'll heal. Lily reached out, small fingers brushing the edge of the dressing. We'll take care of you too, she said softly. Like you took care of us. Vincent felt his throat close. He pulled them both close, arms encircling them gently. Outside the city woke sirens, distant traffic beginning its slow roar. Inside, three people sat together, quiet, still healing. Marco's empire was crumbling. Evidence spread like wildfire across newsrooms and federal offices. Arrest warrants were being drafted, plea deals offered. The man who had hunted children for profit would soon face justice. But for Vincent Russo, justice looked different now. It looked like two small girls eating breakfast on a sofa that cost more than their old apartment's yearly rent. It looked like trust, slowly replacing fear in wary eyes. It looked like love, fierce, paternal, unbreakable, finally allowed to breathe. And for the first time in decades, the weight on his shoulders felt like purpose instead of burden. He rested his chin lightly on Lily's head. Mia leaned against his side. The rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds, soft, tentative, golden. And in that quiet morning light, a family began to form, not perfect, not planned, but real. Deeply, achingly real. The Lincoln Park safe house had settled into a fragile rhythm by the third day. Mornings began with sunlight filtering through heavy drapes, casting long golden bars across hardwood floors that gleamed like dark water. Vincent woke before the girls, always checking perimeter alerts, reviewing encrypted messages from Reyes brewing coffee in a machine that cost more than most families spent on groceries in a month. The scent of dark roast filled the kitchen while he stood at the island, staring at nothing, feeling the slow bleed of exhaustion, and something sharper, the constant gnawing awareness that safety was temporary. That Marco's empire, though, cracking still had teeth. Lily and Mia padded out around 8 hair tangled, wearing the soft pajamas that still looked comically large on their thin frames. They moved more easily now, less like hunted animals, more like children discovering what stillness felt like. Lily smiled when she saw him. Mia offered a small, cautious nod. Progress measured in millimeters. Vincent set plates before them, fresh blueberries, Greek yogurt, swirled with honey, whole grain toast, cut into triangles. Simple food elevated by quality ingredients they had never tasted before. Lily ate slowly, savoring each berry, as though memorizing its sweetness. Mia watched him over the rim of her orange juice glass, still measuring, still waiting for the moment the kindness would vanish. He sat across from them, coffee untouched. "We need to talk about what happens next." Lily looked up, eyes wide, hopeful. "We stay with you," Vincent nodded once. "For now. But there are things I have to finish. Loose ends." Mia's spoon paused midair. "Marco. And others," Vincent said quietly. "People I trusted once." He did not elaborate. Not yet. The girls deserved peace, even if it was borrowed. The afternoon passed in quiet pockets of stillness. Lily discovered the bookshelf, pulling down picture books with wonder, reading aloud in a soft, halting voice, while Mia listened, head resting on her knees. Vincent watched from the armchair bandage hidden beneath fresh linen shoulder, stiff but healing. Every laugh, every shared whisper between the girls felt like absolution he had not earned. Then the encrypted tablet chimed priority alert from Reyes. Vincent stepped into the study door, half closed, so he could still hear them. Reyes's voice came low, urgent. "We pulled more from the drive. Bank records, emails. One thread leads back inside our circle." Vincent's grip tightened on the device. "Who, Frankie? Your underboss. He's been feeding Marco intel for 18 months, including Elena's location 7 years ago." The words landed like a slow-motion explosion. Frankie Moretti, who had stood beside Vincent at his father's funeral, who had taken bullets meant for him in a warehouse raid 10 years earlier, who had sworn brotherhood in blood and ink. Frankie, who had access to every safe house, every schedule, every weakness. Vincent felt the floor tilt beneath him. Why, the word came out hoarse. Money. Power. "Marco promised him the chair when you stepped back. Frankie thought you were going soft, too much time looking over your shoulder, not enough crushing throats. He sold Elena to prove loyalty. When she started digging, he made sure Marco knew." Vincent's vision narrowed to pinpoints. Rage, cold, white-hot, surged through him, warring with a grief so deep it felt physical. He had trusted Frankie with his life, with everything, and that trust had cost Elena her life, cost Lily her mother, cost years of hunger, cold terror. He ended the call without another word. When he returned to the living room, the girls looked up, sensing the shift before he spoke. Lily tilted her head. "What's wrong?" Vincent forced his face into calm lines. "Nothing you need to worry about." But Mia's eyes narrowed. "You're lying." He met her gaze, honest, raw. "Someone I trusted. Betrayed us. Betrayed your mom a long time ago." Lily's face crumpled. "Why would anyone hurt Mommy?" Vincent knelt, slow, careful. "Because people get scared, greedy. They forget what matters." Mia's voice came small, fierce. "Are they coming here?" "Not if I stop them first." He stood. "Stay inside. Doors locked. I'll be back before dark." Lily grabbed his hand, desperate. "Don't go alone." Vincent squeezed gently. "I have to. But I'm coming back. Promise." He left through the garage, taking the older model sedan this time, nondescript, untraceable. The city blurred past gray skies, wet streets, the endless rhythm of traffic and neon. He drove south toward the old warehouse district where Frankie kept his private office. A place they had once shared cigars and plans. A place that now felt like a grave. Frankie waited outside alone, leaning against his black Cadillac cigarette glowing in the dim afternoon light. He straightened when Vincent stepped out. "Vin." Frankie's voice was careful. "Reyes talks too much." Vincent stopped 10 feet away, hands visible, voice level. "You sold Elena." Frankie exhaled, smoke slow, deliberate. "She was digging where she shouldn't. Marco was gonna find out anyway. I made sure it happened clean. Quick." Vincent felt something inside him snap, clean, final. "Quick, she left a 7-year-old alone in a freezing apartment." "You call that clean?" Frankie shrugged, cold, practiced. "Business, Vin." "You taught me that." Vincent took one step closer. "I taught you loyalty." Frankie's hand drifted toward his coat, slow testing. Vincent moved faster, closing the distance in 2 strides, gripping Frankie's wrist before the pistol cleared leather. He twisted hard, controlled. The gun clattered to wet asphalt. Frankie swung wild, desperate. Vincent blocked, countered open palm to the solar plexus. Frankie doubled over, gasping. Vincent stepped back, breathing hard. "You sold my daughter's mother. For what a throne I never offered, Frankie straightened, wheezing. You were gonna walk away. Go soft. Someone had to step up. Vincent's voice dropped low, lethal. You step near those girls again, you don't walk away at all. Frankie laughed, bitter, broken. You think you can protect them? Marco's just the start. Half the crew knows now. You're done, Vin. Finished. Vincent stared at the man he had once called brother. The betrayal burned deep, nauseating, but beneath it rose something clearer resolve. He turned, walked back to the sedan without another word. Frankie called after him, voice cracking. You'll regret this. Vincent paused at the door. I already regret trusting you. He drove away Rain, starting again, soft and steady. Back at the safe house, the girls waited, curled together on the sofa, eyes red from quiet crying. Lily ran to him the moment he entered, thin arms wrapping around his waist. You're okay. Vincent knelt, pulling both girls close. I'm okay. Mia's voice came muffled against his shoulder. Did you... Fix it, Vincent exhaled, long, ragged. I started. That night, after tucking them in, kissing foreheads, leaving nightlights glowing, he sat in the dark living room. The betrayal still roared inside him, guilt for trusting the wrong man, remorse for every choice that had led here, love for two girls who had somehow become his entire world. He stared at the ceiling, rain-tapping glass, and felt the final walls crumble. Tomorrow he would end it. Not with blood, with truth. The evidence now multiplied, verified unstoppable, would finish what Frankie had begun. And when the dust settled, Vincent Russo would walk away from the life that had cost him everything. Not for power. For them. For the family he had never known he needed until it arrived small, trusting, and impossibly brave on the rainiest night of his life. The safe house in Lincoln Park had begun to feel almost ordinary by the fifth day, ordinary in the way miracles sometimes do when they linger long enough to breathe. Sunlight poured through tall windows in the late October afternoons, painting warm rectangles across the living room floor, where Lily and Mia sat cross-legged, playing with a set of wooden blocks Vincent had quietly ordered, delivered. The blocks were smooth, brightly painted, expensive in their simplicity, nothing like the cracked plastic toys the girls had once shared in dim hallways. Lily built tall towers with careful concentration. Mia added bridges and arches, her tongue poking slightly between her lips in focus. Their laughter, soft, tentative, floated through the rooms like something newly discovered. Vincent watched from the kitchen doorway, arms folded, shoulders still stiff beneath the bandage. He had not left the house since confronting Frankie. Reyes handled the streets, now coordinating leaks, managing fallout, ensuring Marco's remaining loyalists stayed scattered and afraid. The news played quietly on the muted television in the corner, federal raids on warehouses tied to Marco Delgado indictments, unsealed headlines, screaming corruption and human trafficking. The empire was collapsing faster than anyone had predicted. Justice moved with surprising speed when the evidence was undeniable. Yet inside, Vincent Peace refused to settle. He moved through the days like a man carrying an open wound no one else could see. Every glance at the girls brought fresh waves of remorse, sharp, relentless. He saw the faint shadows beneath their eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights, the way their wrists looked fragile as bird bones, the hesitant way they still sometimes asked permission before touching anything in the house, as though kindness remained a loan that might be reclaimed at any moment. He remembered his own childhood nights spent under thin blankets, while wind howled through broken windows, mornings waking to hunger so constant it felt like part of his heartbeat. He had clawed his way out of that life, built walls of money and power so high no one could reach him again. And yet here were two children who had endured the same cold, the same emptiness, because men like him had chosen silence over protection. The guilt was no longer a simmer. It roared. That evening, after tucking the girls into bed, kissing foreheads, leaving the nightlight glowing like a small beacon, he returned to the living room and stood before the fireplace. Flames danced behind tempered glass casting, shifting shadows across his face. He stared into them until the heat blurred his vision. He could send them away. Elena's sister Karen lived in a small town outside Madison, Wisconsin. Quiet streets, good schools, a modest house with a yard and a swing set. Karen had wept on the phone when Vincent explained the situation. She had begged to take the girls to give them the normal life Elena had always wanted for Lily. It would be safer, cleaner. Far from the shadows Vincent could never fully escape. He could sign papers, arrange security, visit on holidays, step back. The thought tore through him, violent, nauseating. He sank onto the sofa, head in hands. The room felt suddenly too large, too empty, without their small voices. He pictured Lily's face when she first tasted fresh strawberries, eyes wide with wonder juice staining her chin. He remembered Mia's reluctant smile when he taught her how to make hot chocolate with real whipped cream, the way suspicion had slowly melted into something softer, something trusting. He thought of their thin arms around his neck, their whispered thank yous, the way they still reached for him in sleep as though afraid he might vanish. Send them away. The idea felt like amputation. He stood abruptly, pacing now restless. Outside wind rattled the windows, cold, October gusts that reminded him too clearly of nights when heat had been a luxury neither he nor they could afford. He had the means now to burn that past to ash. Heated floors, down comforters, pantries that never emptied. Yet the memory of their suffering of nights spent shivering while he slept in climate-controlled silence cut deeper than any blade. He stopped at the hallway looking toward their bedroom door. Light spilled softly from the cracked opening. He moved closer, silent footsteps on thick carpet, and pushed the door wider. They slept curled together, Lily's arm draped protectively over Mia, Mia's head tucked beneath Lily's chin. Mr. Bear rested between them like a shared sentinel. Their breathing was slow, even peaceful, in a way Vincent had never known at their age. Something inside him fractured, clean, final. He returned to the living room, sat heavily on the sofa, and buried his face in his hands. The tears came then, silent at first, then shuddering. He had not cried since he was 12, since the night his mother died in a hospital room he could not afford to keep her in. Now the dam broke. Guilt, remorse, love so fierce it felt like violence. He wept for Elena, quiet, kind Elena, who had loved him despite everything and paid the price. He wept for the boy he had been hungry, scared, determined never to be weak again. He wept for the man he had become powerful, isolated, hollow. And most of all, he wept for the two small girls sleeping down the hall who had somehow reached into that hollow place and refused to let go. He did not hear them approach. Lily's voice, soft, sleepy, broke the silence. "Vinny." He lifted his head, startled, ashamed, wiping his face roughly with his sleeve. They stood in the doorway, barefoot, hair messy, eyes wide with worry. Mia stepped forward, first hesitant. "We heard you." Vincent cleared his throat, voice thick. "Go back to bed. It's okay." Lily shook her head, small, stubborn. She crossed the room, climbed onto the sofa beside him. Mia followed slower but determined. Lily touched his hand, small fingers cold against his skin. "You're crying." Vincent exhaled, shaky. "Yeah." Mia sat on his other side, close enough that her shoulder brushed his arm. "Because of us, no," he said quickly. Then softer, "Yes, and no." Lily tilted her head. "Tell us." He looked at them, really looked. Two pairs of eyes, blue and brown, watching him, with a trust that still felt impossible. He took a breath. "I'm scared," he admitted, voice raw. "Scared I'll mess this up. Scared my world will hurt you. Scared I don't deserve you." Mia frowned, small brows drawing together. "You already saved us." "Twice." Lily nodded, fierce. "You got hurt for us. You fought the bad men. You made us safe. You made us warm. You made us food every day. That's what daddies do." The word daddy landed like a stone in still water. Ripples spread through him, painful, beautiful. Vincent's voice cracked. "I left your mom, Lily. I left when she needed me most. I didn't know about you. But I still left. I can't undo that." Lily leaned against him, small head resting on his uninjured shoulder. "Mommy said even dragons can be good if someone loves them enough." Mia reached across small hand, finding his. "We love you. Both of us." Vincent felt the words strike deep, shattering. Tears came again, silent this time. He pulled them close, arms encircling them gently, carefully, as though they might break. "I don't want to send you away," he whispered. "I thought maybe it would be safer, cleaner, but I can't. I can't let you go." Lily lifted her head, eyes shining. "Then don't." Mia's voice came quieter, almost shy. "We don't want normal if it means without you." Vincent closed his eyes, breathing them in shampoo, warmth, trust. The conflict inside him, the violent tug between past and future power and vulnerability, finally stilled. Not gone, never gone, but quieted by something stronger. Love. He kissed the tops of their heads one after the other. "Okay," he said, voice rough with emotion. "Okay. We figure it out together." They stayed like that, three small figures on a vast sofa, until the fire burned low and the room grew dim. Outside, wind whispered against glass. Inside, something new took root, not perfection, not safety without cost, but family, fragile, fierce, real. Vincent held them close. And for the first time in decades, the weight on his heart felt like home instead of chains. Weeks slipped past like soft autumn leaves drifting across the surface of Lake Michigan. The Lincoln Park safe house gradually transformed not through any dramatic renovation, but through the small daily acts of living that turn a building into a home. Crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator door. A pair of tiny sneakers lined up neatly beside Vincent's polished leather shoes. The faint scent of vanilla candles mingling with the aroma of oatmeal simmering on the stove each morning. Little by little, the once sterile luxury space began to carry the warmth of two 7-year-old girls learning what safety felt like. Vincent had stepped back from the sharpest edges of his former life. Reyes and the most trusted members of his team handled the remaining loose ends quietly, methodically ensuring Marco Delgado's final collapse left no lingering threats. Federal indictments rolled in wave after wave. Warehouses were raided, accounts frozen, lieutenants turned state's evidence. The empire Vincent had once helped shape crumbled under its own weight. He did not mourn it. Instead, he felt something close to relief, clean air, after years of breathing smoke. He spent his days differently now. Mornings began with breakfast at the long kitchen island. Lily and Mia sat on tall stools, legs swinging, while Vincent poured orange juice into glasses that caught the light like small suns. Lily always asked permission before reaching for the jam jar, even though he had told her 100 times she never needed to ask again. Mia still watched his hands carefully when he moved old habits from years of unpredictable adults, but the wariness in her eyes softened day by day. Afternoons were for walks, short ones at first, just around the quiet block, Vincent's hand enveloping two small ones. They marveled at ordinary things, fallen leaves, the color of fire, a neighbor's golden retriever pressing its wet nose against the fence the way sunlight made rain puddles look like scattered coins. Lily once stopped in the middle of the sidewalk staring up at a maple tree ablaze with red and gold. "It's so pretty," she whispered. "We never had trees like this where we lived." Vincent crouched beside her. "You do now." Mia looked at him, long searching, then slipped her hand back into his without a word. Evenings were quiet. Board games spread across the coffee table. Picture books read aloud in soft voices. Baths with bubbles that smelled like lavender fields. Bedtime stories sometimes Vincent read, sometimes the girls took turns telling him tales they made up on the spot. He listened as though every word were scripture. One night in late October, after the girls were asleep, Vincent stood at the living room window overlooking the dark lake. The city lights glittered far below, distant, beautiful, indifferent. He felt the old pull, the instinct to retreat, to rebuild walls, to protect himself from the vulnerability that came with love. The voice inside him whispered that he was still marked, still dangerous, still unworthy. Then he heard small footsteps. Lily appeared in the hallway, barefoot, clutching Mister. Bare eyes wide in the dim light. "Can't sleep," she whispered. Vincent crossed the room, knelt. "Bad dream," she shook her head. "Just wanted to make sure you're still here." The words struck him like a quiet thunderclap. He opened his arms. She stepped into them without hesitation, small body fitting against his chest as though it had always belonged there. Mia appeared a moment later, hesitant in the doorway, then joined them, pressing close on his other side. Vincent held them both, arms encircling two fragile lives that had somehow become his entire reason for breathing. "I'm here," he said, voice rough with emotion. "I'm not going anywhere." Lily lifted her head. "Even when you're old and gray," Vincent managed a small, broken laugh. "Especially then." Mia's voice came softer, almost shy. "You're our dad now." Right, the question hung in the air, simple, enormous. Vincent closed his eyes, tears burning behind his lids. "Yeah," he whispered. "I'm your dad now. Both of you." The next morning he called Karen in Wisconsin. The conversation was gentle, honest. Karen cried quiet, grateful tears when he explained he could not let them go. She understood. She asked only that he bring them to visit sometimes, that they know their aunt loved them from afar. Vincent promised. Later that week, he met with his attorney in a private office downtown. Papers were drawn up, legal guardianship for Lily, informal family status for Mia, until formal adoption could be arranged without drawing unwanted attention. He signed each document with a hand that did not shake. The city continued its restless rhythm outside, but inside the safe house, time moved differently, slower, softer, kinder. One crisp Saturday morning in late October, Vincent drove the three of them to the lakefront. They walked along the path near Montrose Beach, wind carrying the clean scent of water and pine. Lily and Mia ran ahead, laughing, chasing gulls, then doubled back to grab his hands. They walked three abreast, small fingers wrapped around his larger ones. Lily looked up at him, eyes bright. "We're a family, right?" Vincent squeezed her hand. "We're a family." Mia nodded, small, certain. "Forever." The words settled over them like sunlight. Vincent felt the last remnants of his old armor fall away, not violently, but gently, piece by piece. The man who once measured worth in power and fear now measured it in small hands, trusting his own in two voices, calling him Dad, in the quiet certainty that love had finally found him. He looked out at the lake, vast, calm, endless. And for the first time in decades, the weight in his chest felt like joy, instead of chains. Knowledge is powerful when it teaches compassion. Knowledge opens doors that fear once locked. Knowledge reminds us that every person carries a story worth hearing. Knowledge helps us see beyond appearances to the heart beneath. Knowledge turns strangers into family. Lesson after lesson arrives when we choose kindness over distance. Lesson upon lesson shapes us when we protect the vulnerable instead of turning away. Lesson by lesson we learn that love recognizes no boundary of wealth or poverty. Lesson upon lesson shows us that true strength lies in vulnerability. Lesson by lesson we discover that compassion is the greatest legacy anyone can leave. Education of the heart changes everything. Education through shared pain builds unbreakable bonds. Education in humility reminds us that yesterday's hunger can become tomorrow's generosity. Education in forgiveness heals wounds we never knew we carried. Education in love proves that no amount of money or power can replace the warmth of belonging. No matter the color of skin, love sees only the soul. Wealth cannot buy compassion. Poverty cannot erase it. Love and compassion flow freely when hearts open wide enough to receive them. If you are watching this video right now, I wish you good health, a joyful life, and daily peace. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear this story today. Your support helps us bring more meaningful, heartwarming tales every single day. Tell me in the comments below, how did this story make you feel? Does it remind you of anything in your own life? Share your emotions, your thoughts, your own moments of unexpected kindness. I read every comment and truly listen to the feelings you pour out from deep within your hearts. Thank you for being here with me. Goodbye for now, and I promise I'll see you again in the next video. Disclaimer: all stories on this channel are fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.